So without any further ado, so welcome everyone to the ABCs of Automating Tests for Software Applications with Spreeha Dutta. And I will now pass the session over to Spreeha.
Cool then. Hi everyone, I'm Spreeha and I'm your speaker for today. The topic is the ABCs of automating tests for software applications. Before we start, a little bit about myself. So I'm a software engineer who is currently working at Shell. I also write different blogs on technical topics as well as general topics for different publications on Medium. And I also have a podcast on Spotify called A Walk Through Changing Times. You can check them out. Either you can search for me on my LinkedIn profile, or if you have any question for me later on, even after this webinar, you can always reach out to me either on LinkedIn, or I'll also share my email ID after the webinar. Okay, then let's start. Okay, so I'll just. Okay, so the first thing, why automation testing? So I think we all know that, yes, it saves a lot of manual effort, things that are repetitive in nature or heavy workflows. When they are automated, then manual effort, resources, these can be better utilized in other ways. So yes, that is a point that we all are familiar with. But automation testing is also a very emerging and growing field now. It helps expand your business to a larger audience, and it saves not only effort, but a significant amount of time. So it has become a very integral part of the software development lifecycle process, and it helps in scaling the SDLC process and further improving it. So that is why automation testing is one of the emerging fields today. So if I go to the next slide now. So here we have a meme. So I think people who've done computer science or studied computer science or are programmers, when they see something, a task that takes 5 minutes, I think we all ask the question that, can it be automated? Can we automate something? So when it comes to automation testing, there is something that we need to be cognizant about, what it is that we are automating, how much time are we saving. So we can automate a 5 minutes task, but will it give a considerable amount of ROI, return on investment? Will it be that much if we automate a task that takes 5 minutes? I know our programmer instinct says that let's automate everything, but there are things that sometimes take less time or equal amount of time with manual effort. So we need to be, critically do an analysis of which are the parts of an application that needs to be automated before we jump into automating something. So my next slide also says more about that. And this is something I firmly believe in. When people learn automation testing, then the focus initially is always on how to automate. But many times I've seen people skip the part what to automate. What to automate always comes before how to automate and is equally important as how to automate. And I'll tell you why. So the thing that happens is when you write an automation script, it also interacts with the application that you are testing in a similar way that you yourself would have interacted. So you script that into your code. But when a human uses an application, the human experience is very different when the interaction happens between a script and an application and a human and an application. So let's say, I think all of us use different apps like LinkedIn, Instagram, but different users, even from, say, I am interacting with person A, my interaction with person A will be different from my interactions with, say, person B. So even when humans interact with each other in different ways, different humans also interact with applications in very, very different ways. So an automation script cannot always cover all the ways and all the perspectives that different humans may interact with an application, which is why it is very, very important that we understand what is the requirement from the business side that needs to be automated, And once the requirement is clear, we need to develop an automation strategy. An automation strategy as in which are the critical workflows, what is the data that needs to be taken into consideration. Such things need to be thought out well ahead before you start writing your automation script. And third, calculating the ROI or the return on investment of your automation. Is it something that is very repetitive? How much time, how much cost is it going to save? Is it a workflow that you see in future sprints? Suppose you're working on a project and you follow Agile, then you may be following the sprints where every sprint you have regression suits that you need to execute. So in such cases, you need to take into consideration what is the automation coverage pertaining to the application and how much of it is repetitive, or is it a very important heavy workflow that is saving considerable cost. In such ways, the ROI needs to be calculated before zeroing down on what needs to be automated. So let's move on. So here we have a slide. So this is actually from a survey that was conducted. It's from an open source survey, and their different project groups were interviewed, and it was found that 40% of the people of the project groups, they were using automation scripts that were very frequently linked with agile methodologies. And then 37% very frequently used CI/CD, or continuous integration, continuous delivery, CI/CD pipelines. Then 10% said that in their projects, automation was only done, in a scheduled manner when needed, on a need per basis. And 9% said only when certain issues arose would they automate something. And 4% said never was automation done. So as you can see from this survey, the automation coverage is vast and it is expansive. So knowing automation, knowing what to automate, writing automation scripts is a in-demand skill going forward, because as we also hear that slowly the manual testing job will slowly be replaced by automation testing. So here we have some of the must-haves for automation testing, and let's explore these one by one. If you have any questions in between, you can put it on the chat window and keep, and I'll take all of them at the end of the session. Okay, so the first point is knowing what to automate, which we've already discussed, what it is that you need to automate, the workflows and all that. So I'll just go to the next slide now. Knowing, okay, here we have a slide on the implementation of types of automation. So the most popular type, as you can see, I'm pointing my cursor there now, is regression testing. 90% of the automation suites are linked with regression testing. Regression is basically workflows that are repetitive in nature, things that come up every time you need to execute that, and automation helps save time and effort and gives you proper accurate results as well. Next, we have repeated test executions are also automated. And then performance testing, load testing, this is done mainly for APIs, etc. If they are working under heavy load, if a lot of users come and start using the application, for such cases also. And for all of these, we have different set of tools. Like for performance testing, we have tools like Apache JMeter, Load Runner. So these are the main areas in which automation is done in a software project. Okay, so this is something that you all were expecting, and you knew that knowledge of a programming language, any programming language actually, like Java, C#, Python, JavaScript, Ruby, Kotlin, all of these programming languages are linked with their own frameworks. And so a knowledge of a programming language is a must-have when it comes to automation testing. And also knowing the automation concepts is very essential. Or I would like to point out here that there are Chrome extensions and there are tools where you can quickly record tests. You don't need to know a programming language, but what happens in those cases, they have their own drawbacks. You can't customize them as per your needs. So to actually properly automate whatever you need according to, to have the freedom while automating something, it is essential that you know a programming language. Okay, the next point is very well versed with functional testing. So I always say this, that you can be good at automation testing, but you need to be great at manual testing for that. By saying to be great at manual testing, I mean that you need to know end-to-end workflows, edge cases, how would the application behave under different scenarios, and things that we had learned in data structures in college, say about decision trees, boundary conditions. These are places that those things, those concepts that we had learned come into use when you're writing your automation scripts. These are things that you need to be careful about and cognizant of, and apply these techniques like finding out edge, boundary conditions. These are the responsibilities of the person writing the automation script, and only when they know the application in and out can they frame their automation script in a way, then the automation script is like poetry when you have that understanding of the application to that level. So now I'll go to the next slide. Automating with customizable scripts. So customizable scripts basically is using a tool or framework and writing it from scratch on your own. As I said, there are Chrome extensions that are available, but they come with their own limitations. Also, when you're using your own scripts, you can customize them as and when you wish. So all of you who have been part of the software development lifecycle process may be knowing that the requirements of the clients keep changing from time to time. Every sprint, sometimes it changes, or every iteration, every release, the requirements keep changing. So if you use, so when you have your own scripts and you have a clear understanding of how and what they do, you can make changes to it as per your needs and validate things that would otherwise become very difficult with, Chrome extensions. And only they have certain limited access where you can only do certain kinds of things. You can't validate all things that you wish to with such quick testing tools. So that is one thing. So it's always good to be using your own scripts which you are writing. So this is a slide on the automation testing market. So as you can see, since 2017, it's an ever-growing market. The last few bars that you see here, this is the projected growth, but it is just increasing year on year. So it is in demand, and it is a must-have skill, as I also mentioned before. Awareness of latest automation tools. So also another thing in the software industry is every 5 years, the tools change, things get replaced, but the basic understanding of the basic concepts remain the same. The tools change, the syntax changes, all that changes. So it is good to be aware of what are the latest tools that are coming in, which features they have, and if and when you need, you may need to switch. But if your base is clear, if your base is clear about how you should automate, what you should automate, then switching to a different tool would also not be a major problem. Okay, so this is a very significant point, thorough understanding of business requirements. So I think this mainly happens with programmers, that we jump to writing code when given a problem statement, our first instinct is to start writing the code. But it is very important that we are very, very clear on what the exact requirement of the business is. And what I mean by business requirement is there can be different workflows to an application. First of all, say when I open an application, I may be looking at messages and someone else may be looking at a feed and going to other posts from there. So people, as I said, different people interact with applications in very different ways. So which are the critical workflows you need to discuss with your team, the stakeholders, and decide on which are those workflows that need to be automated. And you also need to inform them about what are the dependencies that can occur or what can automation testing miss. For example, say the design of the page or the font is of such a manner, when the script interacts with the application, it won't have any problem with the font or anything. But when a human user interacts with something, their experience is very different. After a certain point of time, their eyes may hurt because of how the design on the pages or such things like that. So you need to make it very clear that what will your automation test cover and what it won't cover. So such things need to be discussed before the automation scripts are written. And also, I think, to analyze and mitigate the risk in the very first place. So which are the regression cases, identifying them and informing them about the value add that automation does, and what are the merits and demerits of having versus not having automation. Such discussions, such feedback loops need to be introduced within the team. So when you're doing automation tests, your job is not restricted just to the automation tests. It is also much more than that. It is understanding the requirements, communicating them properly. All these also fall under the responsibilities of someone writing automation scripts. So this was my second point. This was my other point, that effective communication and interaction with stakeholders needs to be established. Next, we have the benefits of automation here. So yes, when we write automation scripts, because human error is reduced, so we deliver quality software products and increase release velocity through CI/CD. So nowadays, almost in all projects, CI/CD is also DevOps. Knowing DevOps is an important skill, and just writing our automation scripts won't do, but maintaining them and maintaining the releases through CI/CD, all that is also important. Then CI/CD means continuous integration, continuous delivery. Then we have reduces human error as tasks are automated. Yes. Then cost optimization reduces costs also in terms of, say, if you're automating something, you don't have to recruit another human resource. So in terms of that, also costs are saved. Maximizes the return on investment. Then ensures faster time to market. So your release is done at an earlier date. So you receive feedback from the business end at an earlier date, and the process is expedited. Yeah, the last point that is a must-have for automation testing is good reporting. By good reporting, I mean that when a layman also reads your report, you should be like anyone who reads your report, someone who doesn't understand software engineering terms should also be able to understand what the report is saying, where the test cases have passed, what has failed, why it has failed. All that needs to be clearly reported. Always remember when you're writing the script that the person reading the script has not written your code, they are not aware with, so you cannot just like print things, but you have to print proper lines also when you're reporting, so that the reporting is done properly. And that also helps in further maintaining the scripts if, say, at a later point of time, some other person comes in and is in charge of the automation scripts. Okay, then, so I always say that there are mainly two types of applications. One is workflow intensive and another data intensive applications. Applications that deal with a lot of data and applications that have many workflows in them. So depending upon the type of application you're using, you should decide which automation tool you should be using. So when you're learning automation, don't focus on, say, learning a particular tool or technology, but first you should know that what it is that you have to be automating, and based on that you have to choose your particular tool or application. For example, for desktop applications, there is Test Complete, Protractor, but for web applications, Selenium is a more popular choice. So you need to understand what it is basically that, what the application basically does and deals with. Also, so these are just broad classifications, but if you go more into it, there are linear automation frameworks if it's just one single flow. Then you have modular applications if you have different modules within your project and each module needs to be separately automated. You have library architecture frameworks where different modules together can be integrated and simultaneously run. Then you also have data-driven frameworks, and you can also have hybrid frameworks, which can be a combination of one or more. And why are automation frameworks needed? So I'll also touch a bit upon what are automation frameworks. Automation frameworks are basically, they are a platform where you have all libraries and all tools in one place in a structured way. So it makes it very easy for a developer or a tester to use particular functions, etc., and invoke them in their code. So what happens when you use an automation framework is that maintenance is much easier, because the upgrades, etc., the framework, you just have to upgrade the framework, and the particular libraries and other dependencies also get upgraded. Then scalability, you can scale your automation tests. You can also run parallel tests. Then reusability of code, if you have components that can be reused, the frameworks make them much easier to be reused. So we'll look at some testing frameworks that are there. So Selenium is the most traditional and most popular framework because it has a large language support, from Java to C# to JavaScript to Ruby to Python. It supports a large number of languages. Also, it is portable and it supports cross-browser testing across different browsers like Chrome, Mozilla, or Edge. Also, Selenium, it has something called Selenium IDE that comes as a Chrome extension where you can record your tests. But for more intensive testing, there is also Selenium WebDriver, which can work with any of these programming languages. You can set up, like with Java, you can set it up, and then within each of them, you have more libraries and tools, like you can use TestNG for working with Excel sheets, writing things, taking things from your application, extracting things from web elements and writing them to Excel sheets and reporting them. Then developers can use NUnits to do unit testing. So there are more libraries and tools are available within that. Then there are other frameworks like WebDriver IO, which supports both browsing across mobile as well as web applications, and it's also easy to learn. Then you have another tool called Cypress, which supports parallelization of tests. And another very good feature of Cypress is that it allows taking automatic screenshots. So whenever your test fails somewhere, the Cypress application, it automatically takes a screenshot at the point of failure, so that it makes it easy to, so it makes reporting much easier. And record and play feature, all that is also there. Some other quick testing tools are Cucumber, Appium, Serenity, Test Cafe. So these are all testing frameworks. So that is all I had. This was a lightning talk. So here we didn't go in depth into any particular framework, but we covered, the basics of automation testing and what it is that you need before automation testing. So that's all I had. So if you wish to connect, if you have any questions for me later, you can connect with me on LinkedIn. My username is Spreeha Dutta. You can also reach out to me on email, spreehadatta@gmail.com. So that's all I had. Thank you, Stephanie, for organizing the session. Let me see if there are any questions in the chat window. So I see all of them have been answered already. So
Fantastic. Well, if there are no additional questions, I just want to say a big thank you to Spreeha for sharing your talk today and sharing your knowledge with us. So we very much appreciated having you. So thank you so much.
thank you so much, Stephanie. Thank you. Bye.
And everyone, thank you so much for joining us today, and be sure to join future events. And we look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you all so much. I will go ahead and close out the session now. Bye.
Bye, everyone. Thank you.